There's a lot of areas which have not really seen what I would call fundamental outcrop exploration, which is essentially what Southern Gold is doing.
Well, hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Simon Mitchell, who is the Managing Director of Southern Gold. Simon, great to see you today, joining us from Adelaide.
That's right. Not too many of us in Adelaide, are they, Leo?
Absolutely. But your company, Southern Gold, you're focused exclusively on South Korea, looking for epithermal gold and silver discoveries in that country. South Korea, not often a name that comes up in mining discussions, but tell us why you think that's the place to be exploring.
It's in a way related to the whole question of why it has flown below the radar screen. We're looking in a place where no one else is looking, and it's a place where we know there is definitely form in regard to epithermal gold, silver. And we know there's got form because discoveries were made back in the 1990s with the Ivanhoe group. They were called Indochina Goldfields at the time, actually, headed up by a guy called Doug Kirwin. And Doug Kirwin is on our board. And to a degree, this is a bit of unfinished business for Doug and some of his team that were operating in Korea at the time. So they actually made several discoveries, 3 different mines, Unsan, Moisan and Gasado Island. And more importantly, they put basically to bed the technical debate about whether epithermal mineralization occurred in Korea or not. It certainly does, and it's been mined for the last 20 years. I guess an important part of the context here, Leo, is that the Ivanhoe group made their discoveries in Mongolia, and in particular, one big one called Oyu Tolgoi, which of course distracted them corporately, as you could expect. So they literally packed up their bags and left Korea virtually overnight. And there's a lot of unfinished business there. So what we've effectively done is reactivated the exploration initiative that was started by Ivanhoe back in the 90s. And we're following up some of these reports, which are to do with some of the opportunities there in targeting these epithermal gold silver plays.
Well, there's a good photo in your presentation, I think, of Doug Kirwin next to an epithermal vein. The photo uses Doug Kirwin as a size comparison.
That's right.
So vein compared to Doug Kirwin.
Yes.
But in terms of your projects, you've got I think 7 prospects that you're looking at. But we'd like to focus today on the 3 main ones that you're targeting at the moment. You've been doing some drilling at your Aphae project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Aphae is a project which we did our first program last year and got back some high grade in narrow intercepts and some low grade on very wide intercepts in this mineralized breccia. And so it was a bit of an unusual one. It perhaps surprised us on the upside as to how much gold was in the system there. And so what we've done is we've gone back out there, flown some geophysics. Basically, the mineralized zone there is depleted in terms of magnetism. And so we're basically following the magnetic low to the northeast just to see how big the system might be. So there's a lot of noise in that district. You know, there was large scale alluvial mining. We found gold in vein systems to the north of the project area and to the south. So there's a lot of smoke, if you will, Leo. And so we think, well, we need to kind of characterize this thing. So we're not expecting this to, be a massive project day one, but certainly there's a lot of mineralization in the system. And so we're just really trying to hunt down to see whether or not we're onto something big or whether it is indeed just a small little historic occurrence.
And Geum Mar, another project, you've been doing some groundwork on that. What have you found so far?
Yeah, so Geum Mar is this very brand new area, basically not really appearing on any maps, completely below the radar screen. It was generated through our project generation work. We've gone out there, found a bunch of veins, epithermal veins. We found them in outcrop going, 4 or 5 grams per ton and never been drilled. That's the key thing, I guess, from an investor's point of view, is that we're literally walking up to new mineral systems that have never seen a drill rig. And we're getting ore grade on surface. So that's not a bad place to start, right?
I mean, given that this project is outcropping and as you said, showing some decent grades in the outcrop, why has it not been drilled before?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing about Korea, and it's something that we see repeated across the peninsula, Leo. So there's a lot of areas which have not really seen what I would call fundamental outcrop exploration, which is essentially what Southern Gold is doing. And so we are in this quite a unique situation where, when we send out field teams, about every 5 to 6 weeks, we find new veins with mineralization that have never been tested before. That's a pretty unusual situation. I would say even globally, that's pretty unusual. So, a really extreme example of that is that third project you raised, the Nettle project, right? Where we've got up to a bit over 9,000 grams per ton silver. And that's in outcrop. And that's a district which was actually known for its silver mining, but has never really been explored on a regional sort of scale.
I noticed that project, you're starting to talk about sort of percent silver rather than grams per ton.
Yes, that's right.
There's so much there. But it's astonishing because, I mean, Korea is not exactly a huge country. And it's not like you're wandering across sort of, Western Australia where things could be easily hidden. It's a small country, heavily populated, and yet there's so many of these things sort of underexplored.
It is, and it goes a little bit to their culture, Leo. Basically, the Koreans have a history of what I would call prospect scale mining. And so they've definitely, combed over the countryside and found the very obvious stuff. And then I guess historically what was mined there in the past was more these orogenic vein systems, big white bucky quartz veins sticking out of the side of hills, which they would walk up to and they would literally start mining in front of their nose and follow these vein systems, which often have great strike extents and depth extents. And so that's sort of an understandable thing in the history. What has happened less so in Korea is actually these, what I would call modern assessment of epithermal systems, which is something that, to be fair, has really only evolved in a sort of Western exploration sense in the last 30 years or so. So it's relatively recent that our understanding of these systems has got to the point where we know how to target them now.
Absolutely. And so for 2021, what are your plans in terms of drilling campaigns?
Well, basically, we'll start to drill some of these new projects that have never seen a rig. So the Gumaras and the Nettle zone at Deokon that we've mentioned so far. We've got another project called Geum Mar, which we haven't talked about, which is a brand new greenfield thing, which has actually got two styles of mineralization on it, both orogenic and epithermal. And that's right on the boundary of these two system types. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the country, and we will be keeping the rig busy pretty much for all of 2021. We have had a few frustrations in terms of the COVID-19 thing, so we're perhaps running at about what I would call the 70% level, Leo. Hopefully as travel restrictions are removed, we can ramp back up to the 100% level, and we can kind of get 2 or 3 rigs running at once and really get the momentum back up and running.
Absolutely, but you're in Adelaide at the moment, but you've got a team there in Korea as well, yeah?
That's right. And that's an important differentiator for Southern Gold, because we've got a full team of Koreans, and they're the guys who have basically been running the drill programs in the last 12 months. It's headed up by a guy called BJ Kim, who's one of our executive directors. BJ is a very experienced executive in Korea, done a fantastic job of getting the team all on the same page and moving things forward. So we've been able to, really do as much drilling as we can given the circumstances, and perhaps not first prize, but we're kind of coming along quite well.
And hoping to ramp things up in 2021, yeah.
Yes.
And in terms of funding it all, how's your cash balance looking?
Very healthy. We raised money last year, and we've got about 10 million in the bank. So certainly we've got funding for the next couple of years. And so, we're not come raising on it by any stretch of the imagination. And on top of that, we're in the process of settling a deal with Bluebird Merchant Ventures on the sale of a joint venture interest, which has a price ticket of $9.945 million US, or just under 10 million. So, yeah.
Right. And at the moment, your market cap is what?
20 million Australian, basically. Yeah. So we've got a tiny EV with what's about US $8 million EV. If you have a look at our presentation, there's a slide there that highlights our enterprise value compared to our peers that operate in Japan. We don't really have any peers in Korea because we're the only company, only foreign listed company operating in Korea. And, the closest thing we've got to a benchmark is the guys who are operating in Japan Gold and Irving Resources. And they have enterprise values that are many multiples Southern Gold. So we've got a bit of catching up to do, but I think we'll get there in the end when the market cottons on to what we're up to.
Absolutely. And your current investors and sort of board members, tell us a little about who's on the team.
Yeah, so on the shareholder front, we've got a group called Metal Tiger, which is an AIM-listed company headed up by Michael McNeely. And so they're kind of high conviction investors in good exploration stories that can really go up the value curve very, very quickly. So they were heavily involved, with names in Africa, and have done very, very well with the when Sandfire did its acquisition last year of the copper play, and so they've certainly got runs on the board. And so they're very, very supportive. They've been involved in our last 2 raisings, and Michael's on the board. Other major investors, there's some Australian family offices there. The Flannery family office, for example, has got a bit over 10% of the company, and so it's a substantial position. And we've had a few investors from Europe, actually, that have been in our company for quite some time. So these are high net worth family offices and things like that that have been really invested in us for the last couple of years, and patiently waiting for that first discovery, Leo.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got lots of prospects there to investigate over the next year, and lots of cash in the bank to do that. So thank you very much for taking us through the company there, and it's fascinating to hear more about South Korea, and we look forward to hearing more in the future as your projects develop. But thank you very much, Simon, for joining us today on Assay TV.
No worries. Thanks very much, Leo.